If you feel anxious after a breakup, I'm going to share with you some interesting studies, neuroscientific studies about anxiety and help you see this anxiety in a different way. I can guarantee you, and let me know in the comment section, that at the end of the video, by the end of the video, your mindset will be totally different and your mood will be totally different because of what I'm going to explain you in this video. So bear with me and let me know, please let me know in the comment section how you felt, and don't hesitate to share it if you found it was helpful to you. Jingle.
IGetMyXback.com. Everyone deserves a second chance.
Now, two important myths that I want to debunk about anxiety. The first, and it's a myth that you see in literature, in magazines, in blogs, on social media. The first thing is that anxiety is dangerous and is destructive, and therefore we feel, because it's dangerous, I need to prevent it, I need to eradicate it. The second myth is that it's a malfunction. It's something is going wrong with me, and therefore it needs to be fixed. Right? If it's broken, it needs to be fixed. The problem with that, when you have those myths, is that anytime you feel anxious, you're more anxious, right? You create anxiety from anxiety. And there's been studies about the effect of graphic pictures on smokers, for example. Most countries, they want to push people to smoke less or to stop smoking, and they thought, like, if we tell smokers that it's really unhealthy, they could die from cancer, they would stop, right? Because it's logical. But actually, what happens is that when you do that with a smoker, they become anxious because for them it's really hard to stop smoking. They know it's bad for them, but seeing those things makes them more anxious. And what do smokers do when they're anxious? They smoke. And so it's actually very counterproductive to use this strategy. I don't know why most countries do that, because it doesn't really work. People know cigarettes is unhealthy. I think the black labeling and removing the brands is way more efficient, but that's another story. But it's very important for you to understand those two myths and really understand that they are myths and they're actually not really helping you to feel better. The problem is not that you feel anxious. The problem is that you haven't mastered how to feel anxious. You haven't mastered yet. Right, and that's what we're going to do today in this video, because we are all anxious, and that's a normal thing. And God bless we're anxious. I'll explain you why. Because anxiety is a trend. This pounding heart, palpitation, negative thoughts. Sometimes it's wrong. Okay, something is wrong. I need to act. I need to do something. It's something that we built as an evolutionary process that helps us to anticipate, to plan, to stay alert, to keep us focused. If we were not anxious, and there are different levels of anxiety obviously, but if we were not anxious, we wouldn't move, we wouldn't evolve, we wouldn't anticipate, we wouldn't plan. We'd go with the flow, like, I don't know, a frog. Even a frog would be like a snail, not wondering what's going on in our life. Anxiety keeps us alert. Anxiety helps us have an edge, right, in the nature and in your life. If you think about that, what forces you to take action, to motivate yourself, is anxiety. And it's all about perception. And that's what my job today in this video is, to really help you change a little bit your perception on anxiety. So studies on public speaking, for example, they asked people who were socially anxious, and they asked them to speak in public. So the worst thing you could do to someone who's socially anxious. And what they told them about the power of anxiety to prepare better, to feel better. They changed the paradigm, they coached them on this. So those people were still socially anxious. But what happened is that they performed better under pressure. They were more confident than the others. And even if when we looked at their heart rate, was more stable than anyone else. And so they managed to channel this anxiety, and rather to be creating their self-fulfilling prophecy, like I'm really bad at public speaking, they use that energy to nail it, to prepare like a rock star, to prepare and have the perfect speech, and to be more comfortable, to be more confident. So it's just a question of how you can channel this, how you can change the perception of this. anxiety and creation, it's also very, very important to understand that anxiety helps to be creative, helps us to be persistent, right? Because of this discomfort, because of these emotions, we are driving to move forward. And studies have shown that it's called creative fluency. And that's why, right now, if you're watching this video, you're trying to get back with your ex, you are creating so many scenarios in your head. And when I speak with my clients who are anxious, I find like fascinating how creative they could be. But they use that creativity in the wrong way. They use that creativity to think about, yeah, but what are they doing with what is she doing with their rebound? What if I do this? What if I send that? So I'm going to send one email and then I'm going to send, and they have like 20 steps ahead. It's like, better than the chess master, right? The problem again is not about thinking one step ahead. It's how you use that energy, how you use that anxiety to your own benefit. It feels bad, and that's why it's good that it feels bad. That's the purpose of anxiety. The purpose of anxiety is to send us a signal, to alert us, to say like, whoa, there's something wrong. You need to do something. Okay? If, again, I use the image of a snail, I don't know if it's a good image, but I really want to show you that being anxious, it's being active, is not accepting the status quo, right? So a snail, I see the image of something that's not moving really fast, going, whatever. When you're anxious, you want to master things. You want to really take control. So that's why it's important not to avoid being anxious, right? It's really about how you can use that. Avoid being anxious makes it even worse each time you feel anxious. And that creates that negative reinforcement. There's been a story, honestly, of a young boy who was socially socially anxious. He was scared of going to school. And so because he was scared, he was sick, and he was like vomiting before going to school, his parents removed him from school because it was hard for him. What he taught him is that the school was dangerous. And so it reinforced this idea that he was socially anxious. Rather than coaching him, rather than helping him to find solutions to use that anxiety, it reinforces and labeled him as being socially anxious and not being able to have connection with people. So it's very important for you to be easy on yourself and use and remove any label that you have. Because sometimes when we're anxious, we create that self-fulfilling prophecy. So don't be that little boy who's now doesn't have any friends, he's not able to work because he's not able to work in a team. Because when he was a kid, someone told him, he's socially anxious, so I need to protect him from the others, from his anxiety, because he's clearly sick. He doesn't want to go, he can't go to school. So I'm going to remove him, and that's to help him, to protect him. That's actually making things worse. So feeling anxious in your situation is just a starting point. For example, when you have a headache and you take aspirin, right? If you have a headache, take aspirin. You forget that sometimes the reason you have a headache is just because you are dehydrated, right? So you can take as lot of 3 grams. I don't know what's the what would be the biggest measure. 3 grams of aspirin throughout the day, but it doesn't work because the reason you have a headache is because you're tired or you didn't drink enough water. So look at the sign. Look at the source of the anxiety. Understand the belief system. Why do you feel anxious when your ex is not reaching out? Why do you feel anxious when your ex is not sending exactly what you expect them to send? You have to face those things. You have to understand those insecurities, perhaps deeply rooted in childhood, perhaps some trauma, and face them rather than running away, rather than say like, oh, I'm anxious. I don't like to be anxious. And I'm going to listen to hours of mindfulness and so on and so forth, which is, by the way, it's okay, because sometimes we just need short-term things and interventions to feel better. But usually when we explore anxiety, it's actually one way to open the doors, to look at the triggers and what's going behind the trigger, and peel the onion and try to find the source of that anxiety. remember, trying to suppress anxiety will make it worse. So that's not the point. If you're trying to repress, trying to avoid, there will be triggers in your life. There'll be times when you'll see your ex on social media. There'll be times where you'll see people, I don't know, in relationship, in couples, and that will remind you of you being single, for example. So be curious about that anxiety. Honor it. Play with it. When you stop rejecting anxiety, you accept that, life is messy. Life is complex, and sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's just a blessing, sometimes it's difficult. And we don't want to live a life that is only pleasure, joy. It doesn't work like this, right? So it's really about how you can learn, how you can own those moments and learn from them. If you manage to channel it, to use it, and also to prioritize what matters. Because some people, because they dismiss anxiety, they put it on the side, but they forget to treat. Anxiety is just a little warning saying, hey, look at this, look there. You should investigate there. There's something there that you should look at. And you feel like, no, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with my mom. That's not the point. I just broke up with my boyfriend. I don't want to deal with my mom. Or I don't want to deal with my boss. Because, I'm just through the middle of a divorce or something. Anxiety is really something that's, okay, why don't you look at that? Why don't you analyze that? Why don't you take the time? And not let the anxiety take the lead, but use that as an indicator, right? So, by understanding, by managing that anxiety, you'll feel better because you will use that at your advantage. And that's what I do with my clients. When I feel anxious, of course I'm gonna give them tips to feel better, to be in the moment and try to stop those obsessive thoughts sometimes when they have obsessive thoughts. But the idea is, that's what we do in therapy, is to peel the onion, trying to understand what we can learn from that anxiety and use it to move forward. If you have any questions, if you want my help, and if you feel too anxious and you want to discuss with someone, don't hesitate to book a call with me and I will be more than happy to help you. Take care of yourself. Bye. Power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer.